quick message about thankfulness. We produce this content for you so you can keep a regular routine with us. And we do it because we're thankful, because you give us a reason to keep a routine like bathing and hygiene. So thank you. And to show our thanks, we give you this video. It's like date night, but worse.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Björn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking Age shows.
We're back at it again, making our way through The Last Kingdom. Season 4, Episode 5. Ready?
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, we're starting with the intro now. We don't have a chance to rant on for like a half hour before the intro.
Thank for that.
Oof. He just bled through that pillow.
For a second I was like, oh, look at the pretty floral patterns. Nope.
Yikes.
Mother! I've missed you. Athelstan, you can come out. Canute has been sent to hell.
Who's the boy?
I'm no one.
Boy is no one.
Quick note on Athelstan here. So they actually noted this when they first introduced him a couple of episodes ago. In a little subtitle, they introduced him as the first king of England.
Yeah, they gave him like the full title.
Yeah. All of England, essentially. Historically speaking, he was brought up and he did grow up as a kid in Mercia under Ethelflaed's jurisdiction. Basically, that's where he grew up. We don't know exactly where he's been hanging out up until now. We just know that he wasn't in Wessex, or we're pretty sure he wasn't in Wessex. So him showing up in Mercia right now, where Ethelflaed is, makes absolute sense because that's historically where he did grow up. I'm actually really glad to see him pop out here because the last time that we saw him, he was in some kind of a monastery, I think it was, kind of being looked after, but we weren't sure exactly where the monastery was. And we do know that he was brought up near Ethelflaed and Ethelred.
Yes.
Basically by them, more or less. So him getting closer to Ethelflaed makes me happy.
It's a menacing little dude.
What you looking at?
So.
Ethelred is injured. Some are saying fatally.
She's like,
There's a rumour he will not last the week.
We must go to him.
Tomorrow. His roads are too dangerous at
We
night.
must speak to him and the Ealdorman. No plan has been made for the succession.
Maybe the mood amongst the Ealdormen is ugly.
Another point to bring up here. Ethelred, we don't know much about how Ethelred died, but the accounts that we have state that he had just taken ill in his older age. Doesn't mean that he died of old age, but it alludes to him dying of an illness, not of a battle wound. Yeah,
and phrasing like that makes it very speculative, to say the least.
Exactly, because we don't know 100%, and the way that it's written is a little bit odd.
Exactly, and that certainly would be something that they would keep track of. Like, for comparison with Alfred the Great, I mean, his historiographer basically recounted his ailments and his illness so well that we can diagnose it in a modern day. Mm-hmm. Like, we're pretty sure he had like Crohn's disease, which is awesome to like know, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's so cool that,
to be
like,
able to know that.
Yeah, to be able to know that and like understand like the ailment, basically, and to be able to like chronicleize that and document it so like in such a detailed fashion that we know like 1,000 years later. It's like, oh yeah, that dude probably had Crohn's. That sucks. So yeah, so it's a little bit strange just to say like, oh yeah, he took ill. I mean, that could mean a number of things. It's all speculation. So this is kind of an interesting twist if they do decide to kind of have him die. And just as like a dramatic piece as well, whenever a king is about to die or passing away, and there's a new appointment, I suppose, like a new successor to the throne, it's always troubling times in the kingdom. No matter who you are, because there's always people vying for power. There's always people trying to flex on your position, and like get a better seat closer to the throne.
Sort of like testing each other and seeing who they can kind of get a leg up on.
Yeah, pushing those boundaries and like really testing and experimenting with like how much way you have, you know, like how much push and pull you've got around everybody, who else supports you, what other plans and stuff are going on. So it's absolutely reasonable for them to be very wary at this time, because who knows, especially if all the other aldermen and leaders and council members essentially are blaming Ethelred, then like totally justifiable for them to be very like hesitant a little bit about just like throwing Ethelflaed into there, because who knows how she's going to be received. I mean, she might be imprisoned or something afterwards and say that she has no claim to the throne when the king passes away.
Yeah.
So who knows whatsoever. Based on history, I'm going to go on a limb and say the opposite, because she was hailed as the Lady of Mercia and basically their savior, so I think that they have a lot of love for her, and I think they're going to honor that with the show and basically spin that whole around to, you know, put minds at ease to say like, oh, well, yeah, he was a prick, but you actually tried, so like, you're more deserving of it. We're fine with that.
Yeah,
which is very progressive for a 10th century audience.
It
Like,
is.
well done, Mercia.
Yeah.
I'm going to recover. I'm sure that you will.
Okay, so maybe he won't die from battle.
To him when he is certain to die.
We'll see.
I ease him in his time of need.
Are you questioning whether I know the mind of my own husband?
No, of course not. We will withdraw.
Always the power struggle.
Ethelflaed, I know that I have not always treated you kindly. For that I am sorry. I was younger and more foolish.
Dang.
Being in a deathbed will do a lot to your mind, I guess.
It's not wise.
Yup.
Cambridge.
Lord,
Have our men directed here to help you build the town.
Lord, the Mercians are proud people. I doubt they will want our help.
We will not ignore their plight again.
I like how you can see them putting up thatch roofs
Yeah.
as they're rebuilding. That's actually a really, really nice touch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see.
Because that's basically how they would have built a lot of their settlements. And if what they're doing is rebuilding the town, that's basically what would have been going on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, most of the kind of settlements and everything, the houses and structures would have those thatched roof, which thatch is basically just like a tall growing grass, essentially, that you cut down and harvest and dry out, and then like tie to the roof, essentially, to create like big poofy layers of insulation and everything. So yeah, so it's good to see them kind of like being put to work and actually like taking the bundles and actually laying them out and doing all that. It actually shows like a decently keen eye for what kind of goes into it. Might even show that there are some reenactors kind of involved in the background and the extras who actually know what they're doing.
Possibly. I did see a shot of them, you know, tying a bundle together, and then you see in the background them putting it up on the roof and kind of like rearranging everything.
Gotcha. I was watching the foreground when they like threw one up to a guy who was already like on the roof ready to like take it and put it down.
Yeah, there was also that. So it's just like the different actions of what goes into it as well as it's actually really cool.
It's like those little activities kind of going around in the background that actually make you look like you're doing something, like there's a busy city, rather than like some dude just like walking back and forth with a bucket. You know, it's actually people working and like slaving away to prepare what was destroyed.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
Yeah.
And the next successor is clear. My younger son's claim is strong to his uncle.
Your son is too young, Bogred. If the worst should befall our kingdom, we will need a man of wisdom.
I can see you think.
Lord Ethelred, I heard you were injured.
I wish to abandon the alliance between Wessex and Mercia as they feel you have abandoned them.
That cannot happen.
If Tettenhall has taught us anything, it is that the two kingdoms stand stronger when they are together.
I know.
I cannot preside over the breaking of our alliance, and I will not allow the fracturing of our father's dream. We will betroth the Lady Elfwin to the successor and seal the bond between our lands.
I am mistress to a dead king. You are the favourite of a dead king. Since when have such people thrived?
Every plan we've made, you've agreed to. You cannot choose to play and then run when it gets a little dangerous. That's a flit.
No, she's just being smart.
We just sorted all this truth to Elizabeth.
Give me both.
Just be cautious.
She's probably the smartest character here.
There will be no fight because we will find a resolution.
Aside from that.
Trust him.
That man Erdwalk, he seems respected by his warriors. He's younger and we know him to be brave.
But he's not an elderman.
I know what you can about him.
So basically he's just talking about picking out a king that he wants.
Yep. Puppet rulers were a thing all over the place.
One of the things that I'm finding interesting about this season of the show, and maybe the last season, I'm not 100% sure, but it stays within the historical accuracy rules as far as the storyline is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But it plays a little bit fast and loose about how it gets there. The reason why I find that really interesting for them to be doing that is because it is believable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at this and you can't really say like, oh, well, we have this written account that says that it happened like this. We have an account, but it was written by the victors who didn't want their country to look bad, so they might have written it to look as good as possible. But it might have still happened this way. We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it, because it is very believable.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, especially like in a time like this where you look at the history and you say, okay, well, you know, England was crumbling as a nation essentially, and there were these very few distinct petty kings essentially that were vying for power and trying to rebuild their capital, and with that try to take advantage of a lousy situation to get as much gain as they could for themselves, for their family, and for their nation. And you're not going to really intelligibly look at that situation and say, okay, well, you know, this king agreed to be subordinate to this one, and everything went fine, and then they just let him take control. Yeah, no chance are they just going to roll over and let that happen. They're going to try to push, and they're going to try to shove, and they're going to use what political ties and what assets they have to kind of take advantage of the other one and force them into a position where they have to give that up. So this has a very good example of showing the steps that kind of go into that. And it still is very historically based. You know, it shows the politics of the Eldermen making those decisions for the nation, for the kingdom. It shows those disagreements and their own, you know, backseated interests of how they wield their power. Mm-hmm. It's all very believable, yeah.
You are not worthy of my daughter. Mercy.
Oops, you rats on him.
She's gotta be smart enough to know that she has to do something about this.
Men are riding this way.
Which man?
I don't know, but they're coming.
I just wanted to note really quickly, I really like her dress.
Yeah, right?
It's not often that you see just a very simplistic looking Viking style dress in these shows, and she was wearing one. It was a little bit more embellished.
Yeah.
Generally, I did notice when she was sitting next to the window, she did have like the little brooches here that are holding up the apron part of the dress. And like the apron part of the dress is like a little bit more embellished than maybe it would have been. But overall, that is a beautiful looking dress. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Same kind of goes for the guy's like cut off tunic as well. Just wicked simplistic and straightforward, and actually we do have some historic styles of tunics that are actually very similar to that, in the sense that it had like actually no sleeves at all, but well before the Viking Age, like might have been even like Bronze Age finds that were discovered in like frozen in the mountains essentially, relatively recently. They had these tunics that were actually like had no sleeve at all, so it would have just been like a cut off Viking t-shirt basically.
Wait, are you talking about that pass that has started melting where now they're finding like Viking Age artifacts?
Maybe.
because of the ice melt and the global warming and everything. There is a pass, I think, in Norway where
Yeah.
they're now finding a bunch of different Viking Age artifacts that were frozen in ice.
Yeah, so similar to that. I think that's actually the same place that like Secrets of the Ice follows a lot. So like that box that was found and everything, I think
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was found from
Yep.
the same area. So yeah, so they're starting to publish those stories, and yeah, there is at least one that was found from that. But there's also examples later on of actually tunics that are made, you know, fully sleeved and everything, but the sleeves are actually a different material than the actual tunic itself. So it shows that like possibly it might have started off as a sleeveless thing, and then they just later on added sleeves at, you know, when they needed to.
Right.
So it is still borrowing that kind of historical sense, which is just nice to see. And also very useful when you want to display the Viking lounging around, you know, the casual Viking, if you will.
I've always felt it will come for me, a speed from nowhere. When I saw the horse's father, I was prepared, but I wasn't afraid. Besides, I figured he'd come for me. And I was right.
That's so sweet.
Find Uhtred on the road to Chester. Tell him to meet me at the ruins of St. Milbert's Priory. Do this and Odin shall we both go penniless.
Women helping women.
It's a new friendship.
It's a slow episode in terms of like the overall storyline and everything, but I still think it's very important.
Yeah, honestly, I think this was a good episode. It wasn't fast in terms of battles and action and everything like that, but it was a very important episode in terms of a king is dying and what is going to happen to the country and where is the power going to fall.
Yeah.
Now, we know historically the power is going to fall on Aethelflaed. We don't know how because right now everyone is vying for that, but ultimately if they do stick to historical accuracy here, she is going to gain that throne.
Yeah, absolutely. And time will tell if they decide to do that or if they decide to kind of skip through that section of history and move on to something else. We will see.
I think this is probably like the least amount of times that we've paused ever
Could be.
on the channel, just because it was a lot of the pieces shuffling and everything like that. Nothing really speaking to historical accuracy aside from the main story arc. And to that, you know, we can talk a little bit about the characters, which we did, but the rest of it is, you know, again, it's very minute things that are being put into play, and we just gotta wait and see what happens in the end with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are kind of minute things, but they do hold a lot of power in terms of everything, you know, because this is all like kind of shuffling behind the board before the next move is kind of revealed, essentially. So they seem kind of like unimportant or like slow or boring points here and there, but it's drastic. I mean, it's what decides the direction of the country.
I am really interested about how they plan to get Ethelflaed to the throne of Mercia.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Rating?
I'm going to keep it consistent. It's been pretty leveled and tapered off, so I'm going to keep it at a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really too much that, like, happened or changed the spectrum. You know, they're still staying within the same realm of where they left off. You know, there hasn't been anything to, like, jump out and surprise me or to be like, oh my god, they're doing this, you know, like, it's a little bit of a filler episode, a little bit of those pieces kind of moving around and, like I said, reorganizing, reshuffling themselves, so we'll just keep it flatline. It's still doing well.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep it at a 6 for me.
I'm also going to flatline. I'm going to keep mine at a 7 for everything that you said, and also just from noticing, you know, the little things like the dress and the believability of the drama storyline within the greater context is really interesting to me. Yeah, I'm just going to keep mine at a 7.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we will see you in the next one.